My fellow citizens, in the quiet chambers of justice, beneath the marbled pillars of the highest court in the land, a decision has been rendered, one that will ripple through the fabric of our republic for years to come. On July 14, the Supreme Court of the United States, divided in spirit and ideology, granted President Donald J. Trump yet another resounding victory, authorizing his administration to dismiss hundreds of workers from the Department of Education. Yes, the halls once dedicated to nurturing the minds of tomorrow may soon echo with the silence of dismantled departments and emptied offices. This decision, delivered not with the unity of consensus but with the razor's edge of ideological divide, marks a pivotal moment in the struggle over the soul of our Constitution, the limits of executive power, and the sanctity of congressional authority. 3 voices, the liberal justices of the court, rose in protest, though they were outnumbered. They raised their pens not in compliance, but in dissent, their words forming the final bulwark against what they view as the creeping erosion of checks and balances. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, unwavering in her clarity, issued a 19-page dissent that resounded like thunder across the nation's legal conscience. She warned that the ruling, cloaked in the language of administrative restructuring, in fact handed the president something far more potent: the ability to nullify laws passed by Congress by simply removing those tasked with their enforcement. A stroke of administrative power now wields the might of legislative repeal. This, she argued, was not merely a matter of personnel. It was a matter of principle, of governance, of democracy. Justice Sotomayor's words carried weight and warning. The majority is either willfully blind to the implications of its ruling or naive, she wrote, but either way the threat to our Constitution's separation of powers is great. What is the Department of Education, if not a guardian of equity? A steward of opportunity. A conduit through which the dreams of children in rural towns and urban centers alike are given form and flight. And yet, in a single ruling, those dreams have been subjected to the political will of one man and the ideological compass of his administration. This is not merely a procedural reshuffle. It is the unraveling of an institution, thread by thread, post by post, until what remains is an empty shell, its mission hollowed out in the name of efficiency, liberty, or some other politically convenient phrase. Let us speak plainly. This decision sets a dangerous precedent. If a president can now circumvent Congress, not by veto, not by negotiation, not by constitutional amendment, but by firing the very people who carry out the law, what remains of the separation of powers? What remains of the vision that Madison, Hamilton, and Jefferson painstakingly etched into our foundational documents? Are we now to be governed not by laws, but by the whims of executive power unchecked? Those who celebrate this ruling as a triumph for limited government must reckon with a paradox. In weakening the institutions that carry out the law, the presidency grows not smaller but more absolute. It becomes the lawmaker, the enforcer, and the judge, all in one. And if that sounds familiar, it should. History is littered with nations that concentrated power in the hands of one leader, believing that their intent was righteous, that their goals justified the means. But the lesson is always the same. What begins as convenience often ends in collapse. To the hundreds of workers at the Department of Education whose careers now hang in uncertainty, know this: your service was not in vain. You stood for something greater than yourselves. You stood for the promise of public service, the defense of equity, and the empowerment of the powerless. To Congress, this ruling is a clarion call. The time for passive resistance is over. The time for legislative courage is now. Reclaim your constitutional authority. Assert your right to write the laws, and ensure that no president, no matter how emboldened, can undo them through bureaucratic purge. To the American people, watch closely. For today it is the Department of Education. Tomorrow it may be the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, the Department of Justice, each agency, each mission, vulnerable to the same precedent. Let us not allow the erosion of institutional integrity to become normalized. Let us not grow numb to the slow, steady weakening of the democratic architecture that has supported this nation for 2.5 centuries. For what is a democracy if not a careful balance of ambition and restraint? Of vision and vigilance? This is not about partisanship. This is not about left or right, liberal or conservative. It is about the structure that holds us all together, the delicate web of powers, responsibilities, and boundaries that prevent the rise of tyranny in any form. Justice Sotomayor stood not as a lone dissenter, but as the voice of a constitutional tradition that demands accountability, balance, and foresight. She did not dissent because she opposes reform. She dissented because she understands history. Because she knows that when executive power is allowed to bulldoze institutions, it rarely stops with one. When the dust settles, when the headlines fade, we must ask ourselves, what kind of republic are we bequeathing to the next generation? Will our children inherit a government of laws, or a government of men? The choice is ours, but it begins with awareness. With resistance to complacency. With the courage to speak, to vote, to question, and to demand more from those who wield power in our name. This ruling will have consequences, not just in courtrooms, but in classrooms. In neighborhoods. In the futures of millions of students who rely on federal protections, grants, and programs to reach their potential. To dismantle the agency that champions their cause is to strike at the very heart of opportunity in America. We must ask, who benefits when education is weakened? Who profits when oversight is eliminated? Who thrives in a system where the law is flexible only in one direction, toward authority, never toward justice? This ruling does not reflect a nation at peace with itself. It reflects a nation in flux, in debate, in struggle over what it means to govern with integrity. And so, let the debate continue. Let the dissenting voices grow louder, more resolute. Let citizens write, speak, organize, and vote. For in a democracy, every decision by the powerful is but a call to action for the people. Let us not waste this moment. Let us not ignore the warning. Let us honor the dissent, uphold the Constitution, and rebuild the institutions that safeguard our freedom. Let us remember that the future does not arrive, it is built. Paragraph by paragraph, law by law, action by action. And today, that work begins anew.